Hey everybody, I'm back with the next video in the series outlining the software and scripts I'm using to make this Mini-ITX XBMC build as easy to use and feature-rich as possible. And this video is going to go over the AutoRipDVD script that we're using alongside XBMC, MakeMKV, and Handbrake to copy a DVD or Blu-ray from the optical disk drive to the hard drive with a click of a button. Now, this script was originally made by a user named Spinal Cracker on the XBMC forums, and I've mentioned it before, but the XBMC forums are a great place to go for pretty much anything. I go there to get ideas for new projects, see if any of the things I'm using in my media center or going to use in a new media center, if they have any updates or anything I need to look into, or if anyone's taken an idea and made something really great with it. And this is one of the more useful scripts I found on the site. It's really great, and basically what it does is it uses the command prompt or command line input and arguments for Handbrake and MakeMKV, so that you don't have to do any button clicks or any manual work. You just press the button. If there's a Blu-ray or DVD in the drive, it will note that. It'll tell MakeMKV to copy every video file from that Blu-ray or DVD that is above a certain time length. Usually it's an hour. And then once that is done, Handbrake will then compress those files, making them a smaller size, and then remove the larger file size copies that were made. And then XBMC will update and you'll have your new video files in XBMC. Now, I did make some changes to this script, and as always, I'll provide a link to the original thread where I got the script and a copy of mine that I've edited. But as with most scripts, you might have to fool around with it, test some things out, use some trial and error, and make sure it works for you. One of the biggest changes I made is that, like I said, Handbrake will usually detect anything that is longer than an hour. You can set the minimum number of seconds you need to check and see if there needs to be a threshold for when it decides to copy the video file from the disk or not. And what Handbrake will usually do is it'll copy every title that is above that certain time threshold. Now, for some DVDs, you may get 4 or 5 titles that meet that threshold. You may have director commentary or a different format or different language for intro and outro titles, things like that. And so what I did is, in the script code for calling MakeMKV, I made sure it only saves one, and that is the first title. Now, for 90% of movies, that works great, but it has some issues, and I'll explain those probably near the end of the video, just for the sake of continuity. Another change I made: normally, when the whole script is done, running MakeMKV and Handbrake, then it ejects the disk to let you know that it's 100% done. What I've done is I've set it to eject the disk after MakeMKV is finished, because Handbrake doesn't need the disk to be in the drive to work. It's actually working off the video file that MakeMKV made prior to Handbrake launching. So that way you don't have to worry about the disk being in the machine for an extended length of time. And that way it's another good indicator of when you can watch the video file in XBMC, because while Handbrake is compressing a smaller copy of the file, the larger copy of the file is actually something you can view in XBMC without any issue. So that way, when the family I'm building this for uses it, they know when the DVD pops out that they can go ahead and watch the video file, and then maybe in around 8 to 10 hours they will have the same video file but in a much smaller file size, so they don't have to worry about taking up so much space. Something else I did is I set custom Handbrake settings going off the ones I outlined in the Handbrake overview video. Like I said, it is the native resolution. I don't do any cropping. If it's a DVD, that'll be 480p. If it's a Blu-ray, it'll be 1080 or 720p. And then I like to make the first audio track DTS pass-through and the second audio track AC3 pass-through or downsampling. And that's just so, that's more my preference, but like I said, with all scripts you may want to play around with it. And there are awesome guides, which I'll provide links to, on how to set up MakeMKV commands and Handbrake commands, as well as tweaking this script to work for you. I know some users have released different versions that let you do a lot more things, but just going off the base one Spinal Cracker made and making some changes myself, I think it worked very well. Now I'm just going to show you real quick how this works. I have Pirates of the Caribbean 4 in the Blu-ray drive right now. I'm going to close the drive, wait for it to start reading it and spin up a bit, and then I'm going to launch this script. Now I'm launching it from Windows Explorer right now, but as you saw in the previous video for XBMC, I did make a link to it in XBMC, so that way the family I'm making this for won't ever have to leave XBMC to copy a video. They will just have to push that button and it'll do everything for them. But basically it's the same equivalent. We're going to push one button here and it'll do everything for us. So I'm going to click. Now this is the, like I said, the command line that you'll see, and it'll run through everything. And you don't really need to worry about a lot of this stuff unless you're testing. And like I said, it took me a couple weeks probably to figure out exactly what I wanted to do, like getting only one title saved from MakeMKV instead of all titles that may be on the disc and things like that. And for the most part it works pretty well. Like I said earlier, it works about 90% of the time, and when it doesn't, it's really not something that you have to worry about, but it's more an inconvenience and something you have to go in and work on yourself. But that's kind of the nature of making a home theater PC or a media center, is that it's going to work most of the time, but when it doesn't, you might have to do a little tweaking. Some of the biggest issues, as you can see, I said I had Pirates of the Caribbean 4. This is where it's saving the video file to. Now the video file itself has the proper name, but the folder that it's saved to, because it saves it to a folder based off the name of the Blu-ray or DVD disc in the drive, is not the same. So sometimes that confuses XBMC, and when that happens, then you have to rename the folder, rescan in XBMC, or edit it with the info tab like I mentioned in the previous video. And so that's not really too bad of an issue, especially when 90% of the time it'll rip perfect and you won't have to worry about it. And another issue I've been having is that sometimes it does not delete the lossless copy or the larger file size copy, and that's really not an issue that much at all. That's something you can just keep an eye on, and when you run out of space, this build has 4 terabytes of space, so that won't be for a while. When it does happen, you can just double check, make sure that you're not having multiple copies of things. And XBMC will show you if you have 2 copies of the same movie, so that's something to clean up as well. But what I'm going to do to take care of that is I'll set up a script, either a task scheduled event or something with a program like Belvedere, where I can just have it monitor file size and date of creation and then erase it after a couple of days. And other than that, this works very well. Now, the only downside to this automatic setup is that it does take time. Like I said when I mentioned in the Handbrake and MakeMKV videos, using MakeMKV to rip a DVD may take 10-15 minutes. Ripping a Blu-ray may take 30-45 minutes. However, Handbrake on a Intel dual-core Celeron processor like we're using in this build, Handbrake can take anywhere from 8 to 10 hours, and that's not really that bad. The family I'm building this for, they gave me a bunch of Blu-rays to start copying in. I can do about 2 to 3 per day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening. Maybe if I'm really on time with things, I can swap it out as soon as it finishes and maybe get a 3rd one in. But that's just something to keep in mind. If you have a much faster computer, I have a much more capable build that I use to rip Blu-rays and DVDs, and that means we can rip a Blu-ray and compress it in 2 to 3 hours. But that still takes time, so that's just something you need to be aware of. However, this does really not slow anything down. I can show you right now. I can launch XBMC, and we can play a movie file while it's copying, and that surprised me because I didn't think the Intel dual-core processor would be able to handle that. It's only 1.5 gigahertz dual-core, but it is able to multitask quite well, and for that I think it's an excellent processor for building a media center with. And so I'll start this video. and make sure to change the sound so it doesn't have choppy playback. I mentioned that in a previous video. If you want to know why it does that, look up the video I made for the remote. And as always, if you like what you see, feel free to leave a like. Comment if there's anything you want me to try next, or you want me to look into or get working for you guys, and subscribe if you like what you see and you want to see more of it. As always, thanks for watching.